As a young child, David Landreth heard stories of a World War II plane that had crashed in the very field where his great-grandfather lived. Decades later, he, along with two friends, would set out to prove what many considered a tall tale to be true. Our reporter had a chance to sit down and discuss this historical find with Landreth.
So, just take me back to the beginning. Tell me about the stories you were told growing up and how you came to go on this search.
When I was probably 7 or 8 years old, my great grandfather would tell me stories about the maneuvers coming through Middle Tennessee. And he told us of various things that he and his wife, my great grandmother, did, as far as they would cook breakfast for non commissioned officers. Officers would get upset because the non commissioned would get home cooked meals and they had rations. And then it came to this story of the airplane. Our hayfield at that time, probably a mile long, so they used that as a runway. And my great grandfather said he would go out in the field and see planes hitched out next to the fence just like horses. And he said this one day they were doing their maneuvers, and I was always under the impression that the plane took off from the field, but it did not. Like we found out, it came from Chattanooga, and it was doing its maneuver and went straight into the ground and exploded, and that's pretty much the story. Um, he said that it was buried there, and he pointed over there, so we were kind of vague in finding it. But Charles and I were working on a fence one day, and Charles comes up and he says, "Hey, do you know the story of the plane?" And I said, "Yes, I do." "Do you know where it is?" I said, "I know about where it is." And I got within 150 yards. Keith and Charles went out with a metal detector, started digging. About 3 days later, they say, "Hey, we found it." Charles called me at home one night and he said, "We found it."
Well, this was I guess about 2 weeks into the dig. I run a business here, so I'm here quite often. But I went back out. It was starting to get dark earlier as winter was coming on, and so I didn't have much time. I get off at work at for between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Of course, I didn't have much sunlight to work with, but I would try to go out there and dig for an hour or two. And on this particular night, I was down in that hole about 3.5 feet deep, and I saw this base piece. I saw it from about right here to right here. I saw that gray paint, and I saw that rounded area. And I thought, that's big, and most of it, because it was in such small chunks, I could free it with my digging tools, and a lot of times it'd pop out. Well, this one, I kept digging around that cylindrical part there, and nothing was popping out. And then I dug down a little bit further where the earth was softer, and I saw that the base piece, and then that's when I knew it was one of the props.
I was happy that we found it. Like I say, I knew it was there. I just never got the urge to go looking. It's made me pretty happy that that the story is actually true, which I knew myself it was true. But you tell somebody, say, "Hey, there's an airplane buried in my field," you think somebody's going to believe me? No. Now I've got proof it's there.
How fun was this for you to
Oh,
go through all of
it
it?
was awesome. It was it was an experience because I haven't done the metal detecting long. It's just a hobby I've just recently got into, and to hear this story and be able to come across this stuff when you're first, you're a novice for sure, and you're first getting into this, and this is one of the first things you find of significance. You're like, "Hey, man, that's awesome."
I was gonna say, I'm afraid it's only gonna go downhill from here with what you come across because this is pretty cool.
We asked David what he planned on doing with this piece of history to continue the legacy of his great-grandfather's story.
All I want to do is see a couple of pieces go. We've got a local museum here. I want to put a couple of pieces in there, and then we'll go from there.
This amazing discovery confirmed what Landreth already knew and will now be a story told by Tennesseans for years to come.